Change it?
Yeah, turn on the audio to the video, but then go over here to your speaker and make sure we've actually got it.
Okay, we're at, do you wanna do it? Whatever you're trying to do. You're gonna see if you and everyone. Oh, might be too low, maybe?
Maybe if we do have somebody's talking, it might
Might come in, he can
bring that.
I bet you got it.
Yes. Nobody's coming here. From their property.
Nobody will come back with that.
He's right over here next to some records, right over there.
Let's see. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the screen that's coming through.
That's okay, let's, switch it.
It's screen one. Wait a minute.
Screen one was selected, so I'm gonna change it to screen two. And share, can you check this postal share?
Now, okay, now it's good.
Thank you.
But just a second, we have show them that.
You know it, Paul. Jason, for what it's worth, council workshop, I noticed that some of the discrepancy in some things as well.
Yeah,
Main thing is as long as it's showing up. on the
yeah, I mean,
Zoom,
it's the same,
is-
it's just you get that extra note,
That's
I
what
mean, panel.
Sometimes it shows that.
it's the letter of the law.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, I see something. Oh, I see it. I got it again to click the top.
I think we're good to go. We got recording rolling, we got presentation, and I saw the YouTube thing go.
We got 1 minute remaining.
That's right. You got a minute to spare, Jason.
That's right.
I will now call the May 19th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order at 5:30 PM. Tiffany, please call roll.
Good evening and welcome to the May 19th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Open Session Meeting. Commissioners, please state present if in attendance. Commissioner Morales. Present. Commissioner Walker.
Present.
Commissioner Jurasik.
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Present.
Commissioner Carney. Commissioner Prager. Present. Commissioner Longino.
Present.
Vice Chair Smith.
Present.
Chair Krause.
Present.
For the record, a quorum is present with 8 commissioners in attendance. Thank you.
Commissioner Morales will give the invocation and Commissioner Smith will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand?
Only please. Gracious living God, we thank you for all your blessings and for the opportunity to gather together today. We ask for your blessings upon this meeting and that we may be guided by your wisdom and understanding. May our words be kind and what we do be pleasing to you. We give you all the honor and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now concern meeting agenda items. Are there any questions or comments? If there are no objections, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Morales and a second by Commissioner Rhodes to approve the meeting agenda items. Tiffany, may we have a vote?
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Jurassic.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Prager. Aye. Commissioner Longino,
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith,
Aye.
Chair Krause.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
The meeting agenda items are approved by unanimous consent. Are there any public comments at this time? If so, please state your name, city of residence for the record. Limit comments to 3 minutes. We'll have a timer for your reference, if at all possible.
I'm seeing no hands raised online.
Okay.
On the consent agenda is the approval of items 4 and 5. Item 4, FY 25 22 final plat of the Ridge at Knob Creek Phase 2. Item 5 is the May 5th meeting minutes. If there are no objections, I will entertain a motion.
Move that we accept the consent agenda items.
Second.
A motion's been made by Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner Morales to approve items 4 and 5 on the consent agenda. Tiffany, may we have a vote?
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Jurassic,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Prager. Aye. Commissioner Longino,
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith,
Aye.
Chair Krause.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
We will now move on to item 5 on our agenda, FY 25 13 ZC. Hold a public hearing to discuss and recommend action on a rezoning request from Plan Development Single Family Attached Dwelling 3 to Office 1 on point 16 plus or minus acres located in the Maximo Merino Survey, abstract number 14, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 1252 Honor Lane. The case will be presented by Senior Planner Shelby Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the commission. If I'm speaking to often, please just let me know. I'll try and project today. So this is on our agenda for tonight, and we'll move forward to the June 5th City Council meeting for first reading and June 26th for the second reading. So taking a look at the background information, so this is a rezoning for approximately 0.16 acres. The current zoning is Plan Development Single Family Attached 3. And the rezoning request is to rezone to Office 1 for a proposal of an office use. Ordinance number 2018-4888, it specifically calls for the subject property, which is here at the corner of East Avenue and Honor Lane, for it to be a community center provided for veterans. It also calls out that an HOA is also established as well. So just getting into some background information, originally this case did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 21st. It was tabled at that meeting and also tabled at the May 5th meeting. At the original April 21st Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there was an open discussion about a negotiation, possibly just having discussions about purchase of the property for the community center. Since then, staff has tried to facilitate a meeting between some advocates for the community center and also the applicant as well. And staff was informed, I was informed that there was a meeting with city manager's office to try and have discussions about what that potential could be for the community center and possibly collaborating with the city. And since those are the most updated information that I have, so if there are specific questions, we do have community center advocates and also the applicant, Mrs. Nikki Darker as well. And then just going back to the case, so this property is actually at the corner of Avenue N and 1252 Lane, so you can see it as a residential.
Can I say something, dear? If you guys don't mind, you know, she has a picture up here that shows this intersection. Of course, this is the property in dispute. At the end of our block of Honor Lane, there is no outlet. This is it. This is our entrance and exit to our community.
Yes, that's, yeah, it's kind of, so with the picture here, it only shows the properties that are within 200 feet of the subject property. But at the end of the street, it is a cul-de-sac, so just want to confirm that too. Okay, so this is just an excerpt of the deed restrictions. Again, the ordinance specifically did call for an HOA to be established. However, an HOA has not been established, but this is kind of the excerpt of what those deed restrictions do include. And then getting into the site photos. So this is the site here. It is a commercial use. It's urban residential for our future land use plan. And it's a part of the Crossley Addition subdivision. So the current zoning is planned development, single family attached 3. To the north of the property, we do have residential use. So the future land use plan is urban residential. It's also platted as part of the Crossley Addition subdivision plat. And the zoning is planned development, single family attached 3. To the south, we have an agricultural use. The future land use plan is residential and neighborhood services. The property is not platted, it's zoned agricultural. To the west of the property, we do have a commercial use. It's the urban residential future land use plan. The property is not platted. It's the zoning is multifamily dwelling too. So it's the Renata Apartments development there. And then to the east, we have residential use, which is also part of the Crossley Addition subdivision. And the zoning is planned development, single family attached 3. Now, taking a look at the zoning, again, this request is for an office use. So, office 1 zoning specifically to allow for an office use. So the office 1 zoning district does permit low-rise garden type office development, providing professional, financial, medical, and other services to residents in nearby neighborhoods. So the proposed zoning district is in compliance with the surrounding zoning. And this did go to our development review committee on April 7th of this year, and there were no issues identified for the rezoning.
Shelby, real quick, it also, Office 1 also still allows a community center. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So later on in the presentation, we'll have a use table comparing the current zoning to the proposed zoning. And as Brian said, the Office 1 zoning district does still allow for a community center to be used by right. Taking a look at the future development plan. So according to our comprehensive plan, the future development plan for this area is urban residential. And that is intended for areas to be developed primarily to conserve and in some cases transition the existing residential areas to be developed with urban character. The specific uses that are called out in the urban residential future development plan include the neighborhood serving retail, personal service, office, and restaurant uses, provided they meet the appropriate design standards. So this is compliant with the future development plan, and the requested Office 1 zoning district is compliant with the future development plan. Taking a look at our existing utilities, so we can see that there are water lines and sewer lines available. For water lines, there is a 12-inch water line to the south and a 6-inch water line to the east. And then for wastewater, there's a 6-inch sewer line in alignment with Honor Lane, and also a 6-inch sewer line to the south of the property, which is in alignment with East Avenue N. So it is compliant. There are sufficient utilities on site. And now just looking at our thoroughfare plan and our trails master plan. So East Avenue is classified as a neighborhood collector. And according to our trails master plan, East Avenue N is proposed as a neighborhood connector trail. And there are you can see my notes here, sorry, but there are existing sidewalks on both sides of Honor Lane in the neighborhood. So taking a look at the general listing of the permitted and conditional uses. So the table on the left, it's showing the planned development single family attached 3, which is the current zoning. Again, the ordinance specifically says that the subject property must be used as a community center, and that is the only use that it can be according to the ordinance. Looking at the proposed zoning district of Office 1, there are several different uses that are allowed in in Office 1, including an office, but also a community center is permitted by right in the Office 1 zoning district. One thing to note is that there are different parking ratios for different types of uses. So there are some uses that wouldn't be allowed based on the current parking that's available. And the table on the right is showing the dimensional standards for the current zoning, which is planned development single family attached 3, and the proposed zoning of Office 1. And just noting some of the dimensional standards compared to those 2 zonings there. So taking a look at the property owner notification, so there were 19 notices that were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. We did receive 2 notices in agreement, and those are from the same property owner, as you can see on the screen. We also received 11 notices returned in disagreement, and just wanting to note that most of those notices that were returned in disagreement were self-identified veterans and homeowners. And we also received 3 notices in disagreement, which are actually outside of the 200-foot buffer. And this newspaper was printed on the, for the newspaper was printed on May 8th, for the public hearing in accordance with state law and local ordinance. We did receive a few return notices today. Some of them are copies of what we see on the screen, but it actually did get renoticed. So that's why we probably have these of them.
So you have a total of 14 disagreements?
That's correct. So, oh, sorry, there's a typo on the screen. It should be 11, but 11 notices were returned in disagreement within this 200-foot buffer. And right, the 3 additional were not included in that 200-foot notification buffer. And you can actually see in the notes here, those are the 3 properties that were outside of that 200-foot buffer with disagreements.
Shelby, real quick,
Mhm.
so that you all know, if those disagreements, if the area that it occupies within that 200-foot buffer, it exceeds 20% of that area, then that would trigger a supermajority vote at city council, which would be 4 out of 5, and right now there are only 3 council members and the mayor. So if this went to council before that, it would require 4 out of 4 if we've confirmed that exceeds or meets or exceeds the 20%. It looks like that would exceed 20%, but we would have to confirm that.
Thank you, Brian. Right, so just taking a look at the summary of the compliance. So we looked at the future development plan. It is in compliance with the urban residential future development plan. There are no issues with the future development plan. Also, just taking a look at the surrounding uses and the surrounding zoning district, it is in compliance there. There are no compliance issues with those. And there are sufficient public facilities and utilities available. And it's also in compliance with the thoroughfare plan. And so the staff recommendation is approval of the rezoning from plan development, single family attached 3 to office 1. And I'm available for any questions.
Commissioners, are there questions or comments?
Could we elaborate on the 20%? We don't have confirmed, it looks like, so give me more.
I think it's the area, it's too like service.
Yeah, it's the entire area within that buffer. And so it's a calculation we have to get GIS to do. Take it, but GIS hasn't gotten us that calculation yet, but it will. We'll have that calculation before we actually go to council.
But Shelby, also the ordinance originally that was set up, it was an ordinance to make it a community center, is that correct?
Right, it specifically said that that property, that lot would be used for a community center for
Okay.
veterans.
That was just one of the elements in the zoning. The zoning was to allow the overall development. The community center was an important part of that, but it wasn't just for that property, it was for the entire street.
Right. Did I catch it was supposed to be an HOA, but it hasn't been yet?
Yes, that's
So
correct. So the ordinance
somebody
specifically called out that an HOA would be established. Since the ordinance and the transfer of properties, all of the properties have been sold off individually. And so from my understanding, and I can also get clarification too from Nikki if you need to chime in here, but there wasn't an HOA established.
Can
Yeah,
you
so that-
elaborate on that briefly?
In just a minute,
You can in just a moment, sir.
because it was partially because it fell during the COVID time, right? Was that part of that or not really?
Don't know. I mean, it was Habitat for Humanity. They owned it. They were the owners responsible for setting up an HOA. And Kyle could address it in terms of how we could actually enforce that. I mean, an HOA is, of course, a private organization. We can't enforce deed restrictions that an HOA would, but, you know, in terms of if anybody wants to go down that road of, hey, what could we as a city have done other than the responsibility was on the owner, Habitat?
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot we can do to force it. We do typically require showing the CCRs, which are the documents to set up your HOA. I don't know if this happened at this time because this was before I got here, so I don't know if we had that same policy back then for HOAs, where we look at the CCR and just make sure it met the basic requirements, but you know, it's up to the HOA. They did at least file deed restrictions on the lots, so there are deed restrictions like you'd normally see for an HOA community.
It was started.
Yeah, so it was started. But as for those deed restrictions, there's no HOA, as far as I can tell, to enforce those deed restrictions. So it would just fall on the individual property owners at that point.
So Kyle, since you brought that up, with your knowledge of the deed restrictions, given we cannot enforce deed restrictions, however, would a community center be allowed under those deed restrictions? Can you at least just talk about what that process and kind of how these fit together?
Yeah, generally the deed restrictions
Be it the community center, something other than a community center, an office, for instance.
Yeah, commercial buildings, commercial uses are not allowed. They're strictly prohibited under those deed restrictions. So I don't know if we got a copy of that up there,
Okay.
but yeah, on this extra slide, it's got a permitted use as single family use, and then it's got prohibited activities, no illegal activities or anything like that. I want to say it's down there on that second section somewhere. It says any commercial use.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fourth from the
Yeah,
bottom.
it
It's
says
any
H is-
commercial or activity except reasonable home office use.
So point
I'm
is,
sorry, could you
even-
read that again?
Yes, ma'am. Letter H, any commercial or professional activity except reasonable home office use is one of the prohibited activities.
So even if council were to approve this rezoning, it does not necessarily mean that, that an office could go in, that, you know, so just keep that in mind.
But what would happen? You're saying because of the deed restrictions?
Yes.
Because of the deed restriction.
But who would enforce that?
Right.
It would be members of the subdivision.
That doesn't exist.
No, it's not the HOA, because the HOA doesn't exist. But property owners in a subdivision that has deed restrictions can enforce it themselves generally.
The deed restrictions are still in effect even though the HOA is never.
Deed restrictions run with the land until they're essentially abandoned by repeated non-compliance and everybody being okay.
So then tell me why we're going here.
Because the rest of the request is to rezone to office use.
Right, but if the deed restrictions and the property owners do not want that to happen,
Be,
why are we here?
because the city cannot enforce deed restrictions.
So who would they go to?
Until we reach like a million population.
Okay, so
something
then
like that.
what Mr. Smith just said, who would they go to reinforce those deed restrictions?
To the court, you'd have to file a lawsuit.
Municipal, county, state?
It's gonna be based on property, so, I mean, you'd wanna talk to a real estate attorney, but it's probably gonna be district court.
So the
I think Mike
homeowners,
also had something. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Just wanted to make sure that she was able to speak to.
in just a moment, I promise. So the homeowners could then ban and create a lawsuit, they would be heard in district court.
Potentially, yeah, I mean, I can't give legal advice here.
I
as
understand.
To, what.
I'm just
their-
making sure I understood what you were saying.
But yeah, it's something that generally it's the property owners within a subdivision have the authority to enforce deed restrictions over that subdivision.
Okay.
And often they do it through an HOA that's been formed. But when there's no HOA, usually they can take care of it themselves. But yeah, it is something I would suggest speaking to your own attorney and getting their take on it.
And the deed restriction is the line H, correct, that we read?
Yeah, all of those are deed restrictions.
Got it, but that main one protects.
Yeah.
There's deed restrictions that convey with every single deed
Right.
for every single property owner.
Commissioners, are there questions within us? Any further questions with us? If not, I'll open the public hearing. The case does require a public hearing. We will now open that public hearing. If you wish to speak and are attending in person, please stand. If you are viewing the meeting online, please virtually raise your hand. Provide your full name, city of residence. For the record, limit comments to 3 minutes, if at all possible. Thank you.
You'll go for it, but.
I was just saying we can go off the list if you'd like. Mary Grace Sellers?
Hi, I'm Mary Grace Sellers. I'm from Moody, Texas. I am the founder of Veterans Outreach Ministry. I am also a Marine. Back in 2018, Veterans Outreach Ministry was enlisted by Keep Temple Beautiful and Fort Hood Habitat for Humanity to help prepare, create, and build a community, which we were told would be a veteran-only community forever. If somebody sold a property, it would go back to another veteran. And being mostly veterans ourselves, we jumped on the chance to give back to our fellow brothers and sisters in arms. Sadly, we're lied to, not by Keep Temple Beautiful group, but instead by Fort Hood Humanity. And it's disheartening to see that our fellow veterans at Fort Hood Humanity were only in a recognition and not a true mission to protect the veterans community. Our ministry, many of our family members, our children, friends, volunteers, I put it out, we had 20 to 30 of our own people out there working all the time. We started off with a great big hunk of land. It was riddled with needles, dirty diapers, trash, furniture, appliance. We cleared all the land. We cut down trees. We built fences, caulked buildings and windows. We painted the homes, built the shed to help, which is behind the community center too, which also was donated to the veterans there. So that shed out there, and that was to keep their yard equipment. We planted gardens, we did landscaping, whatever we were asked to do to help beautify the veterans community, to build a community center and 26 units for our veterans who are disabled, homeless, and down on their luck. We worked weekends, holidays, during the week alongside Pat Patterson, Wilson Art, and a slew of other volunteers, which included the children's who were being taught to respect and honor other veterans, especially the ones who served. We didn't see much of Habitat except when Cam was around. As veterans, we wanted to ensure that our veterans would have a nice forever home to live in as they were promised. The entire year, we were told that veterans getting into the community had to perform community service hours. So that's where we stepped in. Since many of us were veterans, we were told that if we can went in and did community services hours, that they would count for the veterans that were moving into the facility. So we worked tirelessly in the rain, in the cold, in the Texas heat for our veterans for about a year. During the process, we were also asked to send people to Habitat to apply for the housing. We sent tons of people to apply. However, the veterans were treated terribly. And we sent about 50 to 60 referrals. 0 were successful in getting in. The people that were in there, and you're talking about the HOA, they had an HOA at one time. So I don't know what happened to that, but in the beginning, all those people were paying for HOA. So it was devastating to us when the veterans came back and told us how they were treated. After the community was finished, VOM, used to go in, we held Bible studies, we did church service on Sundays, we did game nights once a week. We had picnics, we brought them coffee and cookies that were donated to us to bring to Lee Crossley. We also replaced flags on the flagpoles that were left tattered and torn because pretty much right after people got in there, Habitat disappeared. They weren't living up to their promises to our veterans. So as veterans, we thought we would take care of that and things would be better. So we bought lawnmowers, our personal lawnmowers up to mow lawns. We provided transportation to doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and even to dog groomers and vets, several of veterans in the community. There were also veterans who utilized the community for business centers. So once a week, the Vietnam veterans would all go in and meet with each other. We all got locked out of that. We used to use it every month for our meetings as well. And if we had any other events going on for Christmas or anything like that. So these veterans were promised the VA medical people and VSOs would also come to the Veterans Community Center to help them with paperwork for disability, to do wellness checks and shots, to do classes, to help the veterans learn how to handle their finances, to learn to deal with diabetes, PTSD, and other counseling needs that would help the veterans who were unable to get to the VA. It never happened.
Ms. Sellers, thank you.
Okay,
We've
thank you.
exceeded our 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you.
Clerk Sellers?
Hi, my name's Kurt Sellers from Moody, Texas. I'm president of Veterans Outreach, excuse me, Veterans Outreach Ministry, and we met Pat through a lady we know in town, and he asked if we'd be interested in going in. I'm not going to reiterate everything my wife said, but few of you might know this answer, but does anybody know what I've got your six means? Yep.
Got your back.
A lot of people do. Some people forget what that meaning is. And we had these individuals from Habitat telling us, plus everybody else that lived there, we've got your back. I've got your six. We're going to take care of you. They didn't live up to it. They let greed get involved, and they forgot their mission to honor the veterans. My wife and I, we've sat on the board at the VA as veterans, and we work with veterans all the time, Christmas, whenever. And we met this young gentleman here, and he had a vision, and I hope that vision can continue, because we had dignitaries there. We started from day one clearing that. Our group was there, many other people. We gave a lot of time, a lot of effort. I have Parkinson's. I have a tough time sometimes. This gentleman's got Parkinson's. We deal with things. But you know what? We were there for those veterans, just like the rest of the community that was there. And they appreciated everything we did, everything. We were there when the first person moved in, when they broke ground. Every single day we were there. We put on events for them. We do movie night for people. We had meetings, we had game nights. They wanted to watch movies, we put on movies for them. They had a great facility there. They had a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, they had office space, they had a game room, workout room, and laundry facilities, because a lot of them couldn't afford laundry facilities. So they had that, they were able to use that. Now they decide to just take it away. I think it's unfair, I think it's unjust, and I believe that Habitat, and I'm not going to mention names, dropped the ball. But we had dignitaries out there saying this would be a forever veterans community. People from the town of Temple, people from higher up government. But where are they now? That's about all I have to say, and I have faith in that community and its people.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. Mr. Fitzgerald?
My name's Rick Fitzgerald. I live in Temple, Texas. Also Vice President of Veterans Outreach Ministry. When this thing started, it was all donations and all volunteer. All that money that came in was donated to build this center.
I just don't understand how somebody could just say, okay, now it's commercial. And you've taken it away from people that fought for this country. I myself have 3 Purple Hearts. Vietnam, Iraq, Panama, and a few other places. I've done things, seen things, just like my fellow veterans. They've been through hell. And now that they got a home, somebody wants to take it away. I don't think they deserve that. I think they deserve compassion, understanding. But there's a lot of people that's still willing to volunteer, give their time to these men that have fought for our freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Well, women, I mean men, that means everybody.
Ms. Carr?
Hello, everybody. So I am the owner along with my husband. We were presented to purchase this property over a year ago. We bought 4 of the properties there, and then the Habitat basically said, we're also getting rid of the community center. So, we were not the first private owners that they sold to. We were some of the private owners that they sold to. I understand the intent of the Habitat, but I have nothing to do with the Habitat. They sold the properties and I bought them, not knowing that all of the rest of this was going to ensue. I was told that the HOA was never taken off the ground. They showed me the paperwork of the people that were supposed to be on the HOA. There were no meetings, there were no minutes. The HOA, like has already been confirmed, was not formed. Also during that HOA, the veterans and the citizens were supposed to be making payments. I don't know if they're aware of that because they never again enforced and established the HOA, because somebody has to fund the community center when it was there. It wasn't there for free. Somebody has to fund it and work there and pay the bills and things like that. I am not a person that can do that. I don't have experience with nonprofits. I don't own a nonprofit. My husband and I did not buy the property with that intent. We actually were buying the 4 units that we bought. They were offered 6, we bought 4, and they literally said, well, we're including the community center. So now to this point, it sits there and the community center has been vacant. My husband's a veteran. I'm a military brat. I love our service members. I volunteer. I do lots of things for them. This is just an unfortunate situation, but the neighborhood is not what it was intended anymore. It's not just veterans that occupy that street. So it's not just a veteran neighborhood anymore. And that community center, it has to be funded by somebody. So when I brought this up last time, I was offered by Pat on the fly at the last meeting that he was going to make an offer. I said I would have to speak to my husband. So I agreed to table it because I assumed that I was getting an offer. I told everybody that I'd even be willing to accept an offer underneath market value, and I still am. I never received an offer. Then I was told that Pat Patterson wasn't going to buy it himself, that he was going to talk to the city. I never got any follow-up with that. I got a text message from Sean Danette saying that there was not going to be, nobody's interested in purchasing it. And I said, does that include what Pat Patterson was saying about the city? And she goes, I'm not aware of any offer by the city. So I've never been made an offer. I'm still willing, and I was willing to let go of it underneath market value. And I made that very clear. Everybody can check the recording, but nobody else has followed up with me. Somebody has to fund, if they want it to be a community center, somebody has to fund it. And if the city's not willing to fund it and nobody else is willing to fund it, I'm just curious to, how is it supposed to be ran? Who is going to run it? Who is going to fund it? So I hate that that's what happened, but literally my husband and I, who own the property now, had nothing to do with that. And we're willing to let it go under market. But we only tabled the discussion last time because we were told we were going to be getting an offer and we did not get one. So I don't know what else or what responsibility anybody else expects me to have. And going to say about the owners and lawsuits and things like that, I'm an owner as well. So I don't know what to say. Does anybody have any questions about?
I just got one question. Who gave Habitat for Humanity to sell it in the first place?
Well, that isn't actually what we have to decide here. What we have to decide here is if we're going to change the zoning on the property. Speaking for myself, you know, we can talk habitat all night long. That's not gonna solve our issue, whether we're gonna change the zoning. So we need to proceed right with the zoning conversation. Pat Patterson.
I'm Pat Patterson. I own a company called Patco Construction. And we have a property management company called LVR Management. Now, in 2017, Habitat approached me about this little 2-acre tract that they had, and they wanted a proposal for me to develop that property. My son and I did a proposal, and it basically is what you see on the screen. I hired an engineer to lay out a concept. I brought it to the city and got it through the DRC. We took it to a committee, like the committee sitting around this table here. We said we would put 26 homes in and a community center. And it was approved by the planning and zone, 100% support. It was approved by the city council, 100% support. We proceeded, my company hired contractors. I put the streets in, I put the water and sewer in. I developed the property, got it ready for building. In 2018, during the whole year, I built all 13 buildings, actually 14 buildings, including the community center. We got it ready to occupy. 2019, I turned it back over to Habitat to start the selling process. They told me they could sell all these in a matter of months because we were pricing them at cost. We weren't making, I didn't make any profit and they weren't going to make any profit. So it was going to be just a great deal for very low income veterans and veterans that had to be sleeping under the overpasses here in town. So that was who I insisted it be saved for, and we only would sell to veterans. Habitat agreed to that agreement. I met with an attorney along with the executive director, Ken Cates, and we drew up the restrictions that are attached to every deed that's given to every veteran in that community. It says in there that the common areas, which is the community center, and all the yards are going to be maintained by an HOA, and that Habitat has the responsibility of establishing the HOA, and then it will be funded in the initial year by $100 donation each month, which would be $2,600 a month, which will be used to operate the community center and take care of the lawn care and the outside areas for the veterans, because a lot of the veterans were handicapped and in wheelchairs, not able to do their own yards. So we wanted a situation where we could keep the community looking very nice, and that was how the money was supposed to be used. Habitat sold 4 units in 1 year. And at the end of 2018, that's where we were. I'm gonna need a little bit more time so I can get you all the
Another
information.
minute? 1 minute.
So 2018, 2019, they sold 4 units. 20 and 21, we had COVID. And a part of 22, nothing happened. They sold 2 units in 2 years. They came to me and said, we're going under. We can't keep funding this. All the time, I agreed that to help them, I would buy 14 of the units back and rent them, and then I would pay the $100 per month for my 14 units so we could keep the community center going. During that 2 years of COVID, every week we carried groceries and put in the refrigerator at the community center so all our veterans could have groceries and not ever worry about food. We maintained the yards ourselves. We used the community center. We had events there. The basic thing is I met with Habitat and Habitat's attorney about a year ago. We drew up all the articles for our homeowners association, and the attorney stopped returning my calls. They were all finished, ready to implement the homeowners association. Habitat just quit, would not return my phone calls, would not answer anything that I sent them. I finally called the attorney and told him I wanted to write a contract to buy the community center and the remaining units. They agreed that they would accept the contracts. I turned the contracts into them. There was an issue with one of the units there. There was a drug dealer and a lady living across the street from the community center. Habitat had the second lead on that particular unit. I said, I need help getting that unit foreclosed because it's tearing the whole community apart. Habitat, she just basically refused to help me. She said, I'm not going to do it. She said, I'm not going to honor the contracts. She backed out of the contracts, and a couple of weeks later, she sold. It's not this lady's fault.
No.
She didn't know any of this background. I'd have been happy to discuss it with her. I did try to set up a meeting with the city manager. She's very busy right now because the state's finalizing all their activities for this session. She was not able to meet with me. I did send a couple of people from Citizens for Progress. They were able to get in to see her. She says she is interested in some way of making this work. I don't know what the details. We will have that meeting as soon as we finish this session up. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you got.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Woodford?
Hi, James Worcester, 1223 Honor Lane, retired warrant officer from the U.S. Army. My wife and I are probably about the third generation, I guess you would call, or third wave of coming in. As it's already been indicated, a lot of veterans were not able to meet the requirements for purchasing it. Even though that's what it was meant for the people that really needed to be there. And not to say that Debbie and I don't appreciate it, we do. We came in at the end of this whole situation. We did go and help out several times and enjoyed the community center. When we first moved in, we didn't have a washer and dryer. That worked for us. We had a place to go. We had a place to meet. It was really, really veteran oriented. And it was a beautiful thing, we thought, and we supported. We did not ever get around to paying anything for the HOA because as it was established, it just didn't all come together at the very end, and that's the time frame we came in. The thing I'm really concerned about is this is a one way in, one way out. It is already with the people that are there, the veterans and the rest of the community that is there. It is already very heavy trafficked. And if we were to put something there at the corner as an office, I'm afraid that the trafficking would be really hard. It's even hard for the city to come in and take our refuge and things because it is a very crowded street for just a small little community. Those are our main concerns. We'd love to see it back in a community center for the veterans. We love everything. The camaraderie that there was between the different organizations, and we did enjoy that time that we had there with that community center.
Thank you. Mr. Kendrick?
I'm Rick Kendrick. I live at 1231 on Lane, just a couple of homes away from Jim and his wife. I mostly want to talk about the financial impact this has had on us here. I disagree with Ms. Tharp. We had all 100% veteran community there before they came in and bought 4 homes and a community center. It was 100% veterans. There were no civilian renters or the people that you leased to there. At the same time that she bought the 4 homes in the community center, Mr. David Martin bought the other 2 homes that were available. All of these properties came from Habitat for Humanity, and they went at once to the Tharps, all at once to them, and 2 units to Mr. Martin. Before that time, it was 100% veteran, whether you were a renter or a homeowner. That's exactly the way it was. Since then, they basically came in here and bought all of these properties at cost. We didn't have that option. We basically paid more than cost. The first veterans that came in 2019, they got units at or near cost, just like Pat said. As time went on though, the market, climbs, situations change. They went up in a minimal way. I would say 55,000 to 65,000 was the going rate if you were a homeowner. I paid 62.5 for mine. I just recently got a letter from the Bell County Tax Appraisal Board saying that our units are worth $15,000 to $20,000 less this year because of the purchases that Ms. Stark made and Mr. Martin made. They bought all of their units at cost. When this is factored into the average equation for the county tax appraisal office, we lost ground. We've lost money. Our homes are actually worth less since you came in and bought these homes. Now she wants to come in and rezone. That's going to hurt us even more so. What person in their right mind would want to come in there and buy a home if it's difficult to even get in or out of your neighborhood? I predict we're going to have trouble financially. We already have, and I think we will continue to do so if Ms. Stark is allowed to proceed with this affair.
What was your 2024 tax rate versus 23, for instance? Yeah.
It was, last year we had it at.
What was the value of it?
About 75 on average.
What
I
do you
didn't
think
look
in
at each
23?
individual home
Okay.
paper, but we looked at 2 or 3 of them. This year it's 55 on average. And it's because these people came in and bought so many units at once that we've basically lost value.
My appraisal is down this year too. That might just be a.
And it could be.
I wish.
But
Yeah,
our biggest concern is I just don't want this issue to cause us any more financial duress. And I predict it will.
No, let me contradict you just a little bit. I fought for you, Barry, to be 55,000 because I want to keep your property taxes low, not because that's the value.
And we appreciate.
She had nothing to do with that. We fought that because I wanted to make sure your property taxes stayed low. Your properties, quite honestly, are worth between $75,000 and $100,000. I've sold one of those properties just like yours, one side for $100,000. So your value's not going to go down.
Well,
We're gonna fight to keep the property
and I believe
taxes low.
that, but all I had to go by is like the community stats guy,
Yes,
is I know what the low end has been paid on these. I call it cost. It's about
Yes.
45,000. Basically, that's what she got each home.
46,000 was the price we.
Whereas most of us here, almost all of us here, representing Honor Lane, paid 55 to 65,000 for all.
And I did not pay 40.
So when we come back in,
You didn't pay?
when we
No,
come
I
back
didn't. I
into this,
didn't.
we could have lost values on our homes, and that wasn't the case in the prior 3 or 4 years prior to this year. Now, I agree with Pat on just about everything he said, but what I don't agree with is, we basically lost money on our homes. Some of us are upside down in our mortgages. I know it's not that much money to most of the folks here, but to us it is. And we just don't need any more trouble. We'd rather keep, to be honest with you, I think everyone here involved would either rather keep our community center, a veteran community center, or made into a veteran family, single family home. Keep it all vets. We don't want any businesses on our block.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick.
Thank you.
Ms. Stark?
So I tried at first to see if I could remodel that home, that building, and the cost to turn that into a single family dwelling is way more money than my husband and I have to put into that. Because the way that it's already set up and there's only like the way that it's set up is not an easy fix. It's not like remodeling a home. So that option is not on the table, unfortunately. And also just for everybody else, value is established by what you can sell the home for. And you can contact any realtor right now, and on a low scale, they will tell you that you can sell those homes for at least 75,000. The value that this sir is speaking of is literally the property tax value, and no mortgage company or lender is going to give the value or assess the value of that home based on that. They're gonna do it based off of the comps in the area, and it's gonna go for no less than 75, and that's being on a very, very,
Right.
very, so you
Okay.
have all the value on your home.
Okay, I agree partially. Can I speak just half a minute?
Yes,
When I bought my home about 2 years ago, Habitat wanted 65 for it. The bank said, no, here's the comps. We'll do 62.5.
What year was that? I'm sorry?
This was a couple of years ago.
Right.
And basically, I have, the tax appraisal offices are used in conjunction with real estate comps. And basically, these values, some of it's blue sky, but a lot of it is to the banker and the money people is basically real values that are taken to the tax appraisal board and real estate comps. Since there's been no homes in our community that have ever sold for more than 65,000, and we have the low end at 46,000, you kind of see where we're at. How can one sell for 75? I don't think anybody knows that.
I got one question, if you don't mind. A lot of our veterans are disabled, and that disability comes off tax.
That's correct.
I'm 100% disabled. I don't pay
You don't
any
pay any.
tax, thank God, because if I did, I couldn't. However, some of these veterans have never been told about that. They don't know. And unless we have somebody that's a veteran or a veteran advisor to go in there and let these people know that, they're worried, they're scared. They're losing.
thank you. Moving down our list, Michael Gonzalez.
I make just one small comment.
Yes.
When we talk about the traffic going in, and my husband mentioned that there's no thoroughfare to go out. Also, there's very little parking. That parking you see right there is all that there is for that community center. You put in a business or office or something like that. If they can't fit in that little parking lot, they're gonna be on our streets, making it even harder to get in and out of our neighborhood.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez?
I'm not.
Okay. If there's no further comments or questions,
I'm honestly confused. So if I could try to like recap. So you guys ran the community center. So it was, you built it. You guys ran the community center. You own it now. Some of you don't want a community center. You guys do want a community center. What are your intentions with it? Like, who brought the zoning change?
So I brought the zoning change. My husband and I, we brought it because again, we can't remodel it to afford it, so it's sitting there vacant. So of course, as a property owner, what are we gonna do with the property that's sitting there vacant? We thought about selling it. So we could sell it to people to have an office, not a business, not an attorney. It's not gonna be like a laundromat or anything like that, literally an office space, or even there are other organizations that need like an adult community center. There's other people that would be interested in purchasing that, but they can't because of the way that it's rezoned for a single family. It's not
Got
rezoned
it.
for office space.
That's the piece I was missing.
Yes.
Thank you. Because you had said you didn't want to run a community center, somebody has to run that, you can't do that. So I was like, all right, so why are we here? So, okay,
Right.
so you want to sell it, so we need to change the zoning in order for you to sell it to like someone that's in the office.
Yeah, or even if I kept it as an owner and I rented it to an organization that would use it for adult, I've been approached to rent it for somebody that, for adult community centers, for adult, like daycare and things like that, because the property is perfect for that. But it's sitting there vacant because
Right. How long has it been sitting there vacant?
over a year.
Okay.
And I can't run the community center. And like I said, I hate that they have it that however it happened. And if I would have known, I would have told them, keep your community center. And I don't like, if I would have known any of this, but.
Sure.
How did the community center work? Did y'all have a key to get in or?
Had a code.
Oh,
There's a passcode.
Yeah.
And which as an owner, I can't have that liability of having a passcode.
No, I'm
The
yeah.
veteran community.
Right.
There was a security system there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the police were there quite often. When we have meetings and stuff, they'd come and talk with us and things like that.
Okay.
But even if the zoning is changed, the deed restrictions still prohibit any commercial.
Correct, that's
Thank
right.
you.
I can't imagine rezonings.
I would like for it to still be
I feel like
rezoned.
we're
and
just
then it gives me-
Creating a future problem for what, the district courts and
Well,
all the
usually it's gonna
existing homeowners?
Force more financial burden.
Correct.
And if we're gonna make it an adult community, why not make it a veteran community? Get our Vietnam veterans back in there.
Personally, I think Habitat for Humanity ought to be sued
Yes.
for allowing this to happen.
But the thing
Excuse me.
is still is who's gonna find.
Once
it.
again, this is not
Well,
a
I understand.
So we're going on, we're gonna proceed. We're gonna close the public hearing since there's going to be no more questions or comments, and I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to deny FY 25-13 ZC.
I'll second.
A motion's been made by Commissioner Rhodes and a second by Commissioner Longini. Longino, I'm so sorry. For denial or disapproval of item number 6, FY 25-13 ZC to the city council. Tiffany, may we have a vote?
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Jurassic.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Prager.
Aye.
Commissioner Longino.
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith.
Aye.
Chair Krause.
Aye.
The vote is 7 ayes, 1 abstain. The motion carries.
We're going to move on to item number 7, which is FY 24-16 PLT. Consider and take action on the final plat of Patriot Crossing, a 20.76 plus or minus acre, 85 lot, 4 block, 3 track mixed use subdivision situated with the Maximo Moreno Survey, abstract number 14, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 1624, 1802, and 1806 South Martin Luther King Drive. The case will be presented by Principal Planner Cheryl Maxwell.
All right, thank you. No exceptions are requested with this plat, so the planning commission has final approval authority. This shows the location of the property. It's on the south side of MLK Junior Drive, backs up to the railroad on the west side. On the second diagram or exhibit, an aerial view. Sunbelt Transformers is located just on that, I guess the southeast corner. On the other side of the railroad tracks, you have the VA Center, and on the south side is Tarrant Park. And there is a water tower there close to MLK Drive. And a mortuary, and I think some commercial and residential uses. So this is 20 acres. The plat consists of 85 lots. It's consistent with the PD ordinance that was approved in 2023. That was approved for mixed uses consisting of single family, two family up to 25% of the area, and general retail up to 10% of the area. So the bottom exhibit, the smaller one, shows the different zonings that were approved with the PD ordinance. And I've kind of color coded it with the plat to kind of show you how the plat does match the PD ordinance. Single family 2F, and general retail. 3 tracts are also proposed. Those are owned and maintained by the HOA. Tract A, which this is the long skinny tract up there by MLK Drive. That's proposed for landscaping, signage, and open space. Tract B is at the other entrance. It's a small little triangular tract. That's for landscaping, signage, and also open space. And then tract C is at the bottom left corner, kind of L-shaped tract. That's 4 acres proposed for drainage in a private park. The drainage area will comprise about 22% of that area. So with regard to access, the property again does have frontage on MLK Junior Drive. 2 entrances. MLK is a minor arterial. No additional right of way is needed, and the internal streets will be local streets. 2 standard entrances are proposed, and they meet the requirements for up to 150 dwelling units. So that does meet the requirements for this subdivision, which with the single family lots and the duplex, it's actually 95 dwelling units. And again, I mentioned that drainage detention pond at the bottom corner. That's about 9/10 of an acre. You'll notice on the bigger one, actually, you probably can't see it very well, but there's a diagonal line. This is an existing Texas utility easement, TU easement, that will be abandoned, so it will not affect the development of those lots that it crosses over. Water and sewer is available to serve the site. The applicant will be extending 6-inch water and sewer lines throughout the subdivision. We want to point out that they'll also be connecting to an off-site sewer line in Pecan Creek South Phase 4 subdivision. It's going to come over here again. This is Patriot Crossing. This is the Pecan Creek South Phase 4. The dashed line is the offsite easement. You can see a little bit better in this diagram. So they'll be connecting to the sewer in that subdivision. Regarding sidewalks, 6-foot sidewalk is required along MLK Junior Drive since it's an arterial street. So the applicant will be providing that. Internal sidewalks for the PD ordinance will be 4 foot wide. And that's all the green lines that you see there. They'll go along Defender Drive, American Way, and then up again to connect to MLK Junior Drive. Regarding the park fee, the applicant was approved an exception with the PD ordinance to allow private park in lieu of paying the fee. So the amenities that they're providing total $24,100. It includes a 20 by 30 foot pavilion, which is this little corner right in there. Also picnic tables, and then a 4 foot wide concrete walking trail that runs along Defender Drive, and then there'll be a crosswalk to cross over and then connect to the other sidewalks within that. Also do want to point out for that Atlas easement, it has a variable width. Again, it's that L-shaped property there, the L-shaped easement. It's approximately 87 feet wide. The Defender Drive cul-de-sac right away encroaches slightly into that easement. You can see in the excerpt here, showing that encroaches approximately 9 feet into that easement. So plat approval is going to be conditioned basically on Atmos agreeing to allow that encroachment into their easement. This is in the Temple ISD, and the plat was determined to be administratively complete on May the 14th. So again, we do recommend approval, but it's conditional approval of this plat subject to Atmos agreeing with the Defender Drive cul-de-sac right-of-way encroaching into their easement. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, are there questions or comments?
And you just had to request out for Atlas for a while, and they're slow.
We're not really doing that. That's up to the applicant.
Yeah.
Public engineering, I've not heard that they've received that confirmation.
I'm sure it's just like I-4, they're just slow.
Yeah, Atmos is not always the quickest to get back, so it's probably easier to do the conditional agreement than
Just get it going.
hold off on this until we get an agreement, especially since they've already got it submitted. And since that was the only issue that was still outstanding,
Might as well get this check box
we
done.
recommend just doing conditional approval with this condition.
And I just do want to point out the case number is the 24 case. They submitted the plat a year ago. It was put on hold because of working with Atmos in that easement situation. So
Okay.
taking a little long.
Well, if there are no more questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept item FY 24 16 PLT as presented by staff.
Second.
Excuse me. A motion has been made by Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner Walker to approve item 7 FY 24 16 PLT per staff recommendation. Tiffany, may we have a vote?
Commissioner Morales.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Jurassic.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Prager.
Aye.
Commissioner Longino.
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith.
Aye.
Chair Krause.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
Is there any further business? The meeting is closed at 6:35 PM.
I didn't think doing.
So I looked up, I think we're waiting for the address.